Michelle gave me this paper. She tells me there's something in it and I have to put it in water. Oh, do I get to keep it? Woohoo! Ta-da!
Welcome! Today is a fun crafting session because I get to share with you craft and puzzles all put together. So this is the handmade paper that I made, and each piece has a hidden component inside. So the first time I made this type of handmade paper, I was making seeded paper for a puzzle that we made, which means there's little pieces of seed smacked in between two pieces of paper. So when you plant it, things grow. And then I took that exact same technique and turned it into something like this for a puzzle pen pal exchange, where I put a piece of paper between two papers, so that way when you put it in water, you see something that gets revealed after a series of puzzles. Now this one is a little different. We're visiting some friends in California and they have kids, and we wanted to leave a little surprise. So in this case, we're sandwiching money inside the paper. So we're going to make them do a couple puzzles. The series of puzzles will lead to the solution to put the paper in the water. And when they put it in the water, lo and behold, the paper will disintegrate and money will show up. So let's get started. For paper making, we are making recycled paper. And I'm just using cutoffs from our game so that we can recycle. You can use anything, and actually, like, a good colorant is envelopes or cards that have colors, so you don't have to even worry about coloring your paper. So let's go inside and I'll start ripping this up and we can get started. When making paper, a lot of people use a blender. Since I don't have a dedicated blender for paper making, I actually use an immersion blender, this one. And it's the same one I use for making soap, so it's not interacting with my food. So I'm going to use this, but you can also use a blender if you want. They're super cheap if you find them at garage sales. I would recommend using a dedicated one for paper. There's a couple other tools you need. You need a sponge. You need a Mould and Deckle. Basically, it's something that your paper is going to rest upon when you make it. And then you need a container to hold your water and paper pulp. This is a super cheap Mould and Deckle that I actually found in Amazon. Funny thing is I have a nicer one, but it's larger, and I actually prefer the smaller size. They will fall apart over time, but it's a personal preference. It's a very small investment if you're just going to buy something, or you can make your own, but I just bought it to save time. One more thing you need is something to put your paper on to soak up some of the water. Some people will use paper making felt. I actually use interfacing. It's used for sewing, and I actually happen to have it, so it's what I'm using. Some people even use fabric, so you have a lot of options here. So let's mix it all up. This is my additive. I've got confetti, and the reason I'm adding confetti into the mix is to distract. It's kind of like a magic trick or an escape room trick. I'm making paper that's going to have a little bit of a weird texture, so I'm tossing this in so that people cannot see it as much. You can use anything you want. You can cut up paper, you can use confetti, or you don't have to, but it will, whatever you add to the paper will be seen. So confetti is going into the mix. So much fun. This confetti bleeds. It's gonna kind of color the paper kind of weird colors. It's what I've got in my craft room, so it's what I'm using. Now, I'm gonna put the paper pulp in that we mixed up. I don't put all of it in. This kind of goes by feel, so I'm gonna grab a little bit of paper pulp, put it in, and just stir things around. And I kind of can feel it. When it feels, this kind of comes down to a experience thing, but it's gonna feel a little goopy, but not too thick. Like this is way thick. So I'm just gonna put it around and spin it around to get all the paper pulp mixed up. Now it's time to make the paper. So I've got my mold. It has a thin sheet of mesh in it, and I'm gonna close it up, make sure everything is aligned, and do my first pull. I'm gonna go in, pull it down and towards you, and lift up. And I'm letting it all just drain off. This is actually thicker than I normally make it. The good thing about making it thick for this type of project is a thicker paper will disguise something that's hidden in between. and I'm tilting it a little bit so it runs off. Now I'm going to take my sheet of interfacing. I'm going to place it here. I'm going to use my sponge, and I'm just going to soak up a little bit of extra water. Back in there. Once it's all soaked up, I'm going to grab it, making sure I have that mesh, and pick it up. Going to dab it a little more. This is over a junk towel, so this is a towel I don't care about. The towel's going to absorb more of the water. Now I'm not going to dab it too much because I want it a little bit wet so it will adhere to the next piece of paper. And I'll take this sheet off. So normally I would put the dollar in just complete like this, but my paper mold is a little too small for the dollar, so I have to fold it. I'm a big spender. One whole dollar as a surprise gift. Actually, it's more for the friends, but I'm going to fold it. You're going to see it a little more because it's double, but it is what it is. Now I'm going to pull one more sheet and do the exact same process I just showed you. Now the tricky part is I'm going to try to align the second paper directly on top of the first, and hopefully it goes pretty well so that we don't see edges. Now that it's on, I'm going to just blot it again, and this is where I'm trying to push harder so that everything gets starting to knit together. I want the paper fibers to start to knit. Any air bubbles are getting pushed out from the center object, and all the moisture is going into the towels. Now the moment of truth. And it aligned perfectly, so now what I'm going to do is get it ready for drying. There's a couple ways you can do this. Some people will press it between different sheets of felt or interfacing. I don't do that because I live in Hawaii and it is just so humid here, nothing dries that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on top of a old picture frame with glass. And I'm going to put it on really good, and so that it airs out really fast. You can also put it on windows. And of course, since you're working with glass, if you do it this way, just be careful not to push too hard because glass does break. So I just slap it on. This is an old picture that I took that I'm not using anymore. So I'm using this brayer. This brayer is used often in printmaking. I'm just using it to roll all the edges to get all of the paper with as little water as possible. I also have a sponge so that if the water starts to drip, I can pick it up so it's not making a mess everywhere. I'm making sure to go over the tops and the bottoms and the edges so it knits together really well and hides that dollar I hid in there. Now this thing will take a lot longer to dry than regular paper because it's 2 layers of paper put together. Now, the moment of truth, I get to peel it off, slowly go from one edge. Ta-da! Here's my paper. It's going to be dry probably in about a day where I live. If you live in a drier place, it should be dry much more quickly. When it's done, I'll just go from one edge and peel it right off. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It's super easy. It's a fun way to recycle in a small way. And it's also a fun way to make a great reveal for a puzzle. Keep in mind, I'm using dollars because the dollar doesn't stick to paper. You can't put regular paper in because it's going to stick. So you need something like a dollar bill or vellum, something that, or even fabric would probably work, something that will not stick to other paper fibers. So have fun. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for joining me on this fun crafting tutorial, and I'll see you next time.